Krishnan, thank you for joining us today. You work with Fortune 1000 companies across the globe, 70% of them. You are spending time with CEOs, board members all the time. So would love to hear from you, like, what is the top of the mind thing for CEOs today across the globe? What's going on in every boardroom?
Super. Yeah. Great to be here with everyone. Good morning. Look, I think we are seeing a sea change in so many things going on. We actually refer to it as for the C-suite, the season of more. Okay, it's just more and more, and I'll just try to categorize maybe a few things that are at the top of the list. Financial things are outcomes, but I want to kind of highlight that because there are many things that are different now than they have been in the past. And most CEOs have never dealt with inflation. Most CEOs have never dealt with global conflicts, the Ukraine war, or U.S.-China relationships. So these are all like really inputs ultimately, but people are dealing with that. I think at the top of the list, though, is what I would say is people-related issues. You can go and ask almost any CEO these days, and this is what they're dealing with. And they kind of break down into navigating the talent landscape, both recruitment, retention, leadership development, succession. When they think of people, it's the whole return to office environment, okay, and how people's expectations are changing as well. And then obviously inside that bucket, DE&I is what I would say is another topic. Second big topic is technology. Many companies are still in the midst of or trying to advance their digital agenda, digital transformation. So that continues. And as you spoke to, AI. Okay, this is the conversation of the day, no matter where I go. Number three, I would say societal issues. CEOs have to have a voice on topics that perhaps if we went back 15, 20 years, one would almost say, why the heck are you talking about that, right? And they now need to, their employees expect that. If you go look at most of the trust barometers that are out there, companies are in a much higher trust zone than they've ever been before. So they're looking to you, the CEO, for guidance. Your employees are looking for guidance. And then I would say sustainability is a topic. So those would be the big topics that people are dealing with.
So you touched on a variety of things over here, from D&I, sustainability, talent. Have you seen the marked shift over the last 10 years as you've talked to these CEOs as a focus on these topics?
Yeah.
Or has it always been like this?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think the talent topic has moved to the top now. It was always a top five, let's be clear. Always a top five, but it's a one or a two in every company. And I know you've got many service providers out here. They do all kinds of surveys, and you'll see in every single survey now, it's a one or a two. And I think there are lots of changes there that I see happening as well. One of the changes is that word talent is a much broader word now. Okay, when they used to speak of talent, it would be simply acquisition, but now it means retention, it means development, it means DE&I, it means all of these things when they use that word talent. So, and it also means skills. Okay, and we're seeing that happening in the C-suite as well.
So one thing is that at 8-Foot, right, we have been using AI and talking about how AI can be used to understand talent, grow that talent, right? But normally when we talk about AI, the common thing is that it makes sense for the global workforce. But in your case, you mainly spend time with the C-suite, executive talent, right? Do you think AI is applicable to executive talent?
Yeah, I mean, short and simple, yes. If you'd asked me 6 months ago, I would have said yes, which is why we've been investing in it. And the big difference is the energy level now, okay? I mean, it is completely at a different spot. As you mentioned in your own example, it's in the home, right? It's everywhere. It's now in the boardroom, okay? Even at Heidrick, okay, when we first started our journey into AI, it was part of an organization that we called H Labs, okay? And it's now out of H Labs into the business. We're looking at AI everywhere, and everybody is, okay? So absolutely, the whole world is looking at AI through a different lens, and remarkable potential, remarkable risks as well, okay? So we have to acknowledge the risk side. So while everybody sees the benefits, now the risk words are actually bigger. I mean, we used to hear a lot of talk about bias, okay? I actually haven't heard that much conversation on bias recently, okay? And the word, now that everywhere you go, it's a higher level word actually, is it ethical, unethical, okay? So just think about that. I mean, as individuals, you know, you'll probably take it okay if I said, you know, I think you're a little bit biased, okay? But, you know, how are you gonna feel if I said, I think you're unethical, okay? So this bar is just up there, then you've got security, you've got privacy. So while benefits are up here, risk has also gone up. But I still think everybody believes that the benefits far outweigh the risks, and that if we have frameworks, et cetera, that we'll be able to get there. So the C-suite is beginning to absorb this as well, and we work with them in that capacity as well.
You made a very interesting point over there, right? If I go and tell someone that you might be a little bit biased when you are saying this, acceptable. But think about it, if someone comes and says that software might be a little bit biased, that's completely unacceptable. So actually, the next session, I'm super excited to have Keith Sonderling, right, Commissioner of EEOC, to talk about bias, ethics, AI, and in employment, right? So we'll dive a lot more on that topic. Yeah. Second thing you mentioned about like how AI has become more boardroom topic. So in 1998, when I came to US for my PhD, so back in those days, right, the way you would come in is that you will get a fellowship to study. Like I couldn't afford the money to come here or study, right? And the fellowship I got was to study, do AI over here. And believe it or not, I showed up, and my very first agenda was that I need to move out of the AI world. Like, who wants to be in AI, right? AI is a dead space. Fortunately for me, 2 weeks later, my advisor called me saying that, Ashu, your fellowship is in PhD. Just start working on that and don't focus on anything else. 25 years later, I'm so glad that happened.
Yeah. You know, it's in every boardroom now, okay? And if I give you an example of CEOs and skills and what we think about, even just sort of tying it back to the skills framework. You know, CEO searches aren't just about it's a great person who had wonderful stock performance or something like that. The conversations are far, far deeper now. And, you know, right around COVID time, the biggest attribute, the biggest skill we looked for was how resilient was somebody, okay? And we can actually measure all of this now. And what are we looking for? Foresight, okay? Are people able to look around the corner a bit, okay? We're looking for executives that are high learning quotient. In other words, are they willing to fundamentally challenge their own assumptions and relearn, okay, as well? And we're looking for leaders who now no longer, I mean, who are able to manage through influence, okay, and to be able to get things done. And they're able to kind of work in that matrix model. So that's the language, actually, that now has been absorbed by even the C-suite and the boards, and they're willing to now look at pattern recognition as well to be able to support that.
So that brings me to another important question over here, which is, like, you have been doing this for years. I mean, Heidrick is the household name when it comes to C-suite. And when you talk about things like resilience, competencies of people, right, what is needed to be successful in the C-suite, right?
Right.
But as you thought about technology, right, you probably looked at multiple technologies out there. You considered building it in-house, right? But eventually you decided to partner with Eightfold to build the Leadership Navigator. Would love to hear about like how you made that choice, what were the key driving factors?
Sure.
And any learnings from that?
Sure. Would it be useful to talk about Navigator first and what we're trying
Absolutely.
to do with that? Okay. So, you know, our vision for Heidrick is we've got sort of two dimensions to it. We're all about talent acquisition and all about helping companies become more effective leaders, teams, and organizations, okay? And we began to, as we thought about that, We went out and we surveyed lots of our clients to understand what problem sets that they had. In fact, we talked to Tim Gallagher, my head of strategies out here. I think we blindly talked to, meaning, it wasn't as hydric, but we went out and we surveyed over 2,000 companies. And what did we learn? Okay, we learned that I think 53% of them told us that anywhere from 25 to 50% of all of their leadership roles would either change dramatically, be redeployed, or eliminated in the next 3 to 5 years. Okay, we heard, sort of the however to that is that we also heard that only 43% of them actually had a succession plan for their CEO and direct reports, let alone their whole leadership team. Okay, we learned that 70% of them said we never use leadership development to kind of fill in the gaps as we think about succession, and only 13% of them told us that they thought they knew how to use assessment effectively to either promote or hire people. So he said, my goodness, so much change is going to happen, and how are these people going to manage it? And we asked them, so you've got all these systems out there, for real estate, for IP, where you know exactly what's happening. What about your leadership team? Do you manage that as an asset? You claim it is an asset when we ask you what are you most proud of? And they said, we just don't manage that as an asset. And we said, okay, we'd love to solve that problem. And that's kind of the genesis of our thinking. So we said, well, what are we good at? Okay, and we're pretty good with giving leadership advice. We've got tons of data. We've got lots of insights, and we recognize leadership patterns. But we don't know how to build a system, okay? We don't know how to really tech-enable this and solve this in a way that's systematic, and that's where, you guys came in, okay? And we looked at you. We saw talent. We loved your purpose as well. By the way, our purpose is we help our clients change the world one leadership team at a time. And we loved your purpose with careers and enabling the potential of everybody's career. And we said, wow, this is a purpose-driven company. You had talent, and obviously you were deep in AI. And we said this could be a wonderful combination because you have to know what you're good at and what you're not. And we would not be good at this. So it was a great partnership, and we built this product called Hydric Navigator that comes out of that relationship. So that's why we partnered with you all. We're very excited about that.
No, excellent. Actually, on that one, right, the thing that you mentioned, which is very interesting, like this is my second venture. And one of the things that people ask me, right, what is some of the interesting learnings coming out of the startup world, right, starting a company? Like there are many learnings. I can, again, talk on that forever. But one very interesting learning which is relevant for today's conversation is how your role is constantly changing. So for the first 3 months of our company's existence in 2016, my full-time role was really of a role of a recruiter. I would just call people left, right, and center, cold call them, message them, but it was just hiring. Then for the next 1 year, it was the role of a product manager. Just keep building the product. By that time, we were a team of 10, 15 people. Now I had to be a manager. Then over the years, I had to learn to do sales, marketing, manage people through people. So your role is constantly evolving. And if you evolve, you grow with that, you succeed. If you don't, you fail. But today, that is a reality of every C-suite office, every boardroom, every CEO. Because it may not be driven by the same growth in the company, the scale of the organization, but it could be driven by the changing market dynamics, new technologies, new economic environments, and so on. So I think that what you're doing over here with Leadership Navigator is very pertinent, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to give companies visibility into their leadership team. I mean, I could have asked them 100 questions. If this person left, what would you do? Okay, now you might be able to kind of understand what that looks like. What development does this individual need in order to be the CFO of this company? You could see that. Diversity, do you have a diverse team and a pipeline? You can see all of this stuff. So it's just amazing. And, we've talked with 80 plus companies, okay? There hasn't been a company that said, don't do this. In fact, they've all said, do this.
So that brings to another important point, right? You have a huge focus on diversity, especially empowering women.
Yeah.
And you've been doing a lot on that space, in that space, right? Can you share more about what you're doing over there?
Yeah, look, I think we fundamentally believe that diversity is fundamental to our success. Okay, so we believe that, and we start off with that. Okay, belief that diversity and inclusion actually is incredibly important for Heidrick's success. And so, given that that's a core belief of ours, my big aha as we started on this path was that it's nice to say that, okay, but that we needed to invest. In fact, I would say overinvest, okay, in order to make this happen. Okay, so we launched several programs and we're kind of into our fifth wave into it. One of them was called Accelerating Women's Excellence, which was all around bringing together small cohorts of high potential women leaders and helping them overcome the barriers that they saw. Because we had wonderful women in our workforce partners, but we didn't have a lot of leaders at that point in time. And the second one we have is on advancing professionals of color, which is more aimed at a slightly more junior level and giving them a platform to be able to grow. So these are, into its fifth cohort group, and coming out of our Advancing Women's Excellence is, besides remarkably high retention, okay, which is fantastic, okay, to have is, my leadership team now, coming out of that program, person who runs all of Europe for us is a woman, person who runs all of Americas is a woman. We've got our overall, we call it go-to-market. You could think about that as chief revenue officer for all of Heidrick Search is a woman. So we've kind of changed the shape of our leadership team, and we've got a lot of other women who are leaders as well. But this is just coming out of a program like this, and so this has been a real focus and a real commitment for us. Our board is very diverse, over 40%. It's gender diverse, about 30% ethnically diverse. So we believe in it, and we're putting our money down and creating programs and sticking with that as well.
And is that what you're seeing in your client base as well?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it is a very, very important topic for many companies. And we see it in a lot of places. What I do worry about, and this is more something to be watched, is we do this study called Board Monitor. Okay, so we look at the Fortune 500 companies every year, and we look at how the composition of those boards changes. Okay, and we measure the diversity, we measure ethnicity, we measure all kinds of different things. Okay, so 2022, the last year, the data that we published, the numbers were down. Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah. So the numbers were down. So we went from 45% new women directors down to 40%. Okay. Okay. Which is coming off of, if I went back 10 years ago, 28%. So, okay, better than that. But given where we are, we need to continue on this journey. So we could see it down on every category that we looked at, in fact, okay, of ethnicity. So I think the watch out is like, when times get tough, as last year was a little bit tougher than the year before, and we're thinking about recession, we're thinking about a different world, do we revert back to older behavior in making some of these choices? Or do we need, so I think, look, we need to put the pressure on, we need to keep focus on that. So that's my only kind of like, hey, let's continue to watch this. I think in general, companies are focused on it, but I do see some data that could kind of, imply otherwise.
Actually, that's a very important one, because I think human nature is to go back to your comfort zone in some sense when time gets tough. But I think this is the time when we have to make the call. Because while times are getting tough, the world is no longer the same. Like all of us know like how diverse teams do much, much better than non-diverse teams. How bringing different opinions together, right? In my earlier conversation, I was talking about diversity at the level of skills. And the reason I talk about diversity at the level of skills is, let's say you're a large organization, and you have 100% woman in marketing, and 100% man in some other function, right? That's not diversity. Yes, as a boardroom, you can say that I've checked the box, I have diverse team, I have 50% women, 50% men. But true diversity is when in every meeting, every conversation, you can bring diverse opinions together. And not only just bring those opinions together, you can give respect to each other's opinion and develop those, right?
Absolutely.
So I think this is something we have to watch out for together.
We have to watch out, we have to put the pressure on, and leaders have to be there talking about this as well. So,
No, I'm so glad that you touched on that important point, right? One other thing that I've been super impressed by, Hydrick, and would love to hear how you even thought about going it is on-demand talent.
yeah.
Like you are an executive search firm, but on-demand talent for executives.
Yeah, so this is, we've been watching the space for a while, okay? And again, as I said, one of our planks is all around talent acquisition. So there's full-time talent now, and we've got flexible on-demand talent is the way we see it. And you know, one might think this concept is only at significantly lower levels or different levels, but we began to see this emerging back in 2018, in fact, okay? In 2018 is when we got interested in this space, and we made a small investment in a company to say, let's try to partner together, okay? And always when you're running a company, the idea is nice, but could we work together was the real question, okay? So I decided, okay, let's try to figure out whether we could work together, and does 1 + 1 = 3? And it just did with our clients. And that experiment was great, so then we ended up buying that company. And from there, we've built a platform. And we think that, you know, flexible workers for either, you know, interim roles or project roles are critical, okay? There continues to be shortage of people in this world. There are all kinds of special projects happening, like transformations come and go, right? And then what happens, right? And how do you deal with it? And what kind of workforce do you need? What kind of special skills do you need to be able to do that? So while that was going on, at the same time, you know, COVID occurred, okay? And what did COVID teach us? It taught us that we could work differently, okay? We suddenly weren't proximate with everybody. And we actually dealt with a lot of people in a project-based fashion, okay? So people kind of went up the curve again of sort of being able to, you know, companies went up in terms of their openness and thinking through how to get work done. At the same time, lots of people elected to work part-time, okay? I know the Wall Street Journal tracks this in aggregate numbers, and one of the numbers that they just recently published is that last year, 1 million more people voluntarily decided to work part-time. Voluntarily is the word, okay? That's on top of a couple million the year before, a couple million the year before. So this pool is growing. So there's lots of talent. There are many companies who can't access this talent unless it's part-time, actually, or on a project basis. So we're bringing all that together, and we think it's a fantastic solution for our clients.
I think that is going to be the norm going forward.
Yep, like your son. Like you said, I know. I was like thinking, okay, we'll sign him up.
So many in the audience, right, are very senior level executives in Fortune 500 companies, right? And you work with the CEOs, boards of these Fortune 500 companies. What is the career advice you will have for everyone? Like, if anyone is aspiring to be the CHRO, and actually, can CHRO be the new path to be the CEO?
Yeah. I mean, look, I don't know if the CHRO path itself is going to lead to that, but I think, you know, by the way, it's sort of hidden Some people don't know these things, but Mary Barra, who's the CEO of General Motors, she was the CHRO for General Motors. So I think people who are very, very facile in the people-related topics, whether they occupy that job or have occupied an HR role along the way, will be highly, highly valued, is the way I see it. So, look, I think we are, I think most of his audience is at the intersection of HR and technology, and I think that you're at a beautiful place in time, okay? There couldn't be a better time, is what I would say. I would say career advice-wise, look, technology will definitely, and potentially some recession will definitely reshape traditional HR. But having said that, the need for advisors in HR, the need for people who can understand the problem sets is only growing, okay? It's only growing. And so, figure out how to navigate towards a higher value, more advisory type of nature of a role than a transactional role is what I would say is a career advice for people who are in here. Embrace technology as an enabler, okay? And being familiar with it and understanding its pluses and minuses, you'll be the translators for the organization, and that's a very, very powerful position to be in as well. So I think that's kind of, if I would say, as well, look, what have the last 36 months proven to hopefully all of us is that we're all a ton more resilient than we ever thought, okay? And so stay focused on your course if this is your course, and I think you'll go through maybe some rough patches that we may have ahead of us, but I think it's a world of opportunity out there right now.
No, I think very well said, right? The world is changing, and the more we adopt things, the more we adopt the change.
Right.
And for me personally, speaking as a CEO, right, I say that, and I have many other execs from the team here, so they may get unhappy, but I think the two most important things is, do you have the money in the bank? So I call my CFO and be like, make sure we have money in the bank, everything is good over there. And I call my CHRO, do you have the right people? Because that's the only two things I can do as a CEO, right? If I have the right people, wonders will happen. If I don't have the right people, things won't happen, right?
That's right.
So,
yeah, well, look, I mean, if you're inviting me to give you advice with your team here, no, really, what I tell CEOs is, look, number one, I think you have to remember the CEO job is a job of privilege. Okay, it's not a job of right. It's a job of privilege. And you're probably the only one in your company who doesn't have a day-to-day deliverable. Okay? Everybody else has something that they have to get done. You may not, okay? So everybody's looking to you to make sure you're living up to the promise of why they joined. You're thinking about the future, and you have to stay laser focused on that. Yes, you might get caught up with a few of the disruptions of the day and some crises that'll happen, reorganization, all those things will happen. But you have to be on that course because that's why the people are there, and you have to build great teams underneath you that allow you the leverage to do that. And that's what, if you go and look at the great CEOs, they're able to do. So that's my advice to you would be, and I know you think that way, but just stay focused on that mission. And it's very, very important.
I think, this is why I always love talking to you, right? I think, like every time you share this with me, I let it sink in for a minute. This is a job of a privilege. And I'm privileged, honored, thankful that all of you joined us today here. We, Eightfold, without you all is nothing. Our single purpose as a company, our mission, is to enable you all to succeed. Because when we do that, we will succeed in the journey, right?
Absolutely.
So, and thank you, Krishnan, for joining us, giving all these words of wisdom. It's amazing to have you as a friend, so thank you.
Super. Good to be with you all.